I sit here reflecting on my life, wondering how in the hell did everything just fall apart? My stability went to shit. My friends and colleagues want nothing to do with me, which is completely fine with me considering I want nothing to do with them. Let's not even get started on my marriage and the fact that I lost the love of my life, who was in fact not my wife. Yet through it all, only one question remained on my mind. How could I lose her? Now was not the time to think of should-haves or could-haves. My greatest challenge of the day was wondering where my next meal was coming from. Honestly, I wasn't hungry, nor could I sleep. The constant replay of these major events that took place just keep playing over and over and over again within my mind, and how everything just happened so fast. But of course it did. I was set up, and I didn't see this coming. I pray for restitution, but it never answers me as I sit in this slum village of Rome. I had no relatives to seek out during my time of misfortune. My family, ever since my childhood, has always been my greatest challenge. And when I was old enough, brave enough, and strong enough, I broke away. However, that was years ago. So to reach out at this point in time would definitely be a no-go. Besides, it would probably bring them great joy knowing how disastrous my life is at this time. The least of my concerns was the humiliation that I was going through. My greatest problem in my mind was trying to strategize how I was going to get the love of my life back. I can accept losing everything in the realization that it was never for me to begin with, or mine in the first place. Yet to lose love, someone who truly loves me, is a tragedy, and a tragedy that is unbearable. I was set up by everybody in my life, and she just came in and became the only person who tried to help me, to warn me. She wanted to save me. Why would she risk so much of herself? How could she do such a thing without knowing how I felt, or if I would even return the feeling? Why would she just be so impulsive? I asked these questions, but I already knew the answer. She was absolutely in love with me, and I was honored. I just couldn't believe it. She didn't know me, but she told me that she did. It was so foolish of me to overlook her kind and gentle gestures of respect for me. If we go back in and replay the events, you'll see where I overlooked so many of her sacrednicities. It's been days since I've gotten out of bed, dreading the thought of my secret life coming to light. In my mind, my two worlds were in perfect separation. I guess you could say I wanted my cake and to eat it too. I live with my family in a small one-bedroom cubicle. The lack of space, privacy, and consideration was overwhelming at times, but over the years I've learned to manage without complaining. I thought I had everything under control in my life and within myself. That was until I met Barry Blue. The stranger I unexpectedly fell in love with uncontrollably came in and exposed the truth of my beastly hidden nature. My heart spread like wildfire and bursts of oxytocin releases whenever I was in his presence. My body responded to his breaths, and my eyes went blind from the light that illuminated from within him. The very first time I met him, I felt an instant familiarity with him, as if I've known him all my life. We became great friends right away until things began to grow intensely between the two of us. Conflicted by my decisions and actions to indulge in him, considering he was married at the time to a woman named Eustace. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. I was in love with Barry from the moment we connected. It was as if my heart and soul imprinted on him without consulting me. I would never do anything to hurt him nor anyone else in his life he loved. All I cared about was him and his well-being, even if that meant I had to lie or sacrifice myself. I knew the rules of the game we were playing, as well as the consequences. Nothing and no one has ever given me this feeling of desire and love. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. I expected that this wouldn't last long. Either things would become too much for us and we'd agree to separate, or in the worst case scenario, our affair would be discovered. I was prepared for the humiliation that I would go through. However, I never expected to be humiliated by him. Though everything fell apart for him in his life, I was still very in love with him, as if my heart chose him and refused to stop beating for him. What was it about this man that gave me the strength to love him like this?
I remember meeting Barry for the very first time. It was somewhat by coincidence. Honestly, I've never been the type of person to believe in coincidences. I believe that everything happens for a reason. It started out with me being a member of a community of creators. We had many different types of big events and festivals, charity and auction events, to help raise money that would help out with certain benefits for members. For example, promotions, marketing, and distribution. It was a $25 paid membership every month. It was very profitable and very beneficial to me in my livelihood at the time. In between big events, there would be small networking sites, and each site would be in a different location, one weekend out of the month. This was grounds for creators to come together to network and meet each other. When I say creators, I mean individuals who are taking a more open-minded and unconventional approach to their financial independence. For example, entrepreneurs. One night at one of these in-between networking meetings is where I saw Barry for the first time. I had often seen him. However, we were into different topics and subjects, so of course I noticed him and how handsome he was, yet he wouldn't strike my attention until 6 months later. I had left to study abroad knowledge, and living with a mentor, I studied under very closely for 3 months. A couple of months after my return home, I decided to get back out into the community and see what was happening. And because of my studies abroad, the topic of conversation began to change for me, and that is how I ended up in the same room as Barry Blue. It's just so happened that on that particular night, Barry was the guest speaker. He talked all night. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my ability to be able to keep up with everything in which that he was saying when working under my mentor. A lot of the information just seemed too complex for me to understand. Yet, sitting there listening to him as he breaks down his lecture, I found myself becoming intrigued and inspired. Life had been pretty dry and pretty dull at this point in time. Some days, I felt as if there was a black cloud just hanging over the top of my head, with rain coming down. My mind was bored and unproductive. My day consisted of cleaning up behind everybody in my household. My girlfriends never had time for me anymore because they were all out working and having a good time living their lives. I never cared too much about living because within my mind, I could go and be anywhere. All I needed was to read it, to see it. maybe even to hear it, to empathize through somebody else's experience. So during my time spent with listening to Barry, it was as if I were a seed underneath the ground buried. And somebody comes in and begins to strip back the shell of the seed. And from there, the seed grows and it sprouts. Nor does it stop growing. That was the feeling that I felt, inspiration and life. I began to unfold. I began to unravel the complex ball of yarn in which I once saw myself as, and became a beautiful knitted quilt with the most beautiful sacredistic patterns. So you see, Berry Blue wasn't just another John for me to take a nice ride on, to escape the modern day pressures of being in between tradition and unconvention, and all the many responsibilities, as well as the intolerable flexibility of self. He was more, and he meant more to me